My name is Robert H. Patterson, Jr., and I was introduced to the Mayo Clinic via an experience with my father, Robert H. Patterson, Sr. Robert H. Patterson, Sr. Was a very dedicated, hardworking man. He was a U.S. veteran, he served in the armed forces, and continued to serve his country even thereafter in civil service capacity. He recently passed. His experience and his story is one that I like to share because through the Mayo Clinic, it enabled us additional time and additional measures to ensure that he was at peace, that the family was at peace, and that we were all very well educated to the process and the disease that he had. In November of 2011, in Fairbanks, Alaska, which is where he resided, I'm from that state, he went in for what is called a liver test, which is a very high-level examination. That was part of what's called the VA, the Veterans Administration, would actually require this with many of their veterans. Similar to most, he went in for the examination, and they were able to notice that there was a lesion or an abnormality in the tissue in his kidney. But upon further review, it was confirmed that the disease was called renal cell carcinoma. I decided that I would do some research. That research took me to the Mayo Clinic website. I started looking there. I realized that they had a very renowned surgeon here named Erik Castle. And so, as my dad was going through the process, him and Castle developed a really good bond. And that bond, I'll tell you, was very cherished, and all the way down to all of his residents. And I'll tell you, Dr. Weiland, Dr. Grinsby, Dr. Majay, I mean, all of them, as he went through the process, I think they popped their heads in so many times. He actually began to develop an affinity, not just toward Dr. Castle, but the Mayo Clinic. He said, I'm noticing something that's really different here. Key things I started noticing is, there's a lot of registered nurses here in the department. That's something he would have never said previously, okay? This guy wouldn't let alone know it. But even in his stays and talking with everyone in the medical teams, he started to learn that these types of proficiencies mattered. It mattered with proper care. It mattered with proper, ensuring doctor's orders were followed, and also for patient safety. As he started kind of moving into that driver's seat of asking questions and so forth, it became again, like it's a relationship that was starting to develop. And that relationship was genuine. Dr. Castle said, well, considering everything at this point, I think we're going to go for a surgery. The surgery went successfully. They removed 95% of what was visible. Now, the cancer was so metastasized so far, though, into his bloodstream, we were kind of concerned that it would come back quickly. And at his late stage, like it was at 3A, we were being realistic. He was really the only sort of patient that you'd ever see. The minute he could feel able, he'd try to get up. And he'd say, hey, I need to go walk around and go check this place out, he'd always say. And on the third floor, they have a courtyard up there, and he'd try to walk out every day when he could there. But before he goes out, because of the surgery and all that went on, he'd always need his cowboy hat. So he put his cowboy hat on and started walking the halls, and then all the people at the different desks would start saying, oh my, here he comes again, and he'd be just telling everybody, and this became his motto. Many people know him by it, but he likes to say as a moniker, life is good. So even as things got really very bad, and at times, you almost were kind of concerning, he still would say, life is good. The doctors were like, good gosh, we know you're in a lot of pain. And he was like, hey, I'm still here. Life is good. He'd say it throughout every sort of phrase. It would almost be kind of impeding itself in there. It was really neat to see. And he kept his composure. He never really let fear enter his mind. He felt so comfortable because of the processes that were in place here at Mayo that it got to the point that one thing he had never done in his life previously was refer to a hospital as a good place. He still kind of lived like he wanted to live, which was key in this process because we knew the outcome wasn't going to be so positive. That was conveyed up front. We realized that even upon the surgery that there was potentially, he wouldn't have actually had this additional time that we ended up having. But Mayo allowed that to happen. As I sit here today, I'm really at peace with the entire process. My father passed as he wanted, surprisingly, in hospice. Oh gosh, this guy would have never said that before. He got to the point that he was ready when it was time to go, and we saw that he had really got there. And he's actually turned again and said, I think I'm ready for hospice. He was like, hospice, are you sure you want to do this? You walk through all of the things. He was like, are you kidding? I said, Mayo's campus, I'm going to be good. So it was really neat. So we took him over, and he did ultimately pass here at his wishes. And so it was kind of surprising, again, that his life takes those turns as we all change as individuals, but we become more educated, more informative of process. What was once a gap because of intimidation with the doctors essentially became sort of a friendship. It was no longer this, hierarchy, but now they're almost on the same plane. And that process here at the Mayo Clinic really allowed my father to come at peace even in terms of the end of life. And I think that was so critical, not just for me, but for my mother, for his family, and for us to be able to share his story.